Today we're talking about breathing principles in Pilates. I'm not going to teach you everything in one session, but I'm going to share some ways in which your breath can be a tool for you to use. So the first thing I'm going to tell you is your breath is part of your autonomic nervous system. So if you're breathing and you're not passing out, you're doing a great job. We all know taking a few deep breaths, especially when we're more stressed or agitated, is really helpful for our nervous system. And if you're not passing out, you're doing something right. 2 is breathing is a tool. It is not, despite what yoga, Pilates, other meditation gurus might tell you, whoever in your life, it is not an end-all be-all. There is no one right way. It is a tool, and being able to tune into your breath, how your breath moves through your body, how you can use it for facilitating movement or stability or control is just that. It's just a tool. You can use it if you learn how to control it and manipulate it and play with it, right? It's playing. It's learning how to interact with it, just like you learn how to interact with gravity in a positive way rather than only a negative way or only in the way where you think you're doing it wrong all the time. 3 is that when you get that control over your breath, over your rib cage, the respiratory diaphragm, it will shift your posture from your head over your shoulders and ribs, your shoulders, because if you can get your ribs in a nice place, then your shoulders can rest on your rib cage. When you get that respiratory diaphragm and rib cage in a good place, then your pelvic floor can really support itself, meaning that it is part of your core, that respiratory diaphragm and that pelvic floor, and then you've got your abdominals and you've got your spinal muscles and your thoracolumbar fascia. All of that works together to form your core. And if you are not learning about your breath or learning how to integrate your breath into your movement practices, whatever that may be, then you're really missing a crucial part that could really just skyrocket your progress, whether it comes in the form of better pelvic floor function, better hip mobility and hip strengthening, better abdominal functioning and strengthening, better shoulder girdle and upper back posture and neck placement. I mean, it can really change your world when you start moving those ribs and your respiratory diaphragm again. All right, so today we are just gonna touch into some movements and how you can use your breath as a tool. We'll touch on how it relates to some of the Pilates repertoire, particularly in Pilates. We do a lot of posterior lateral breathing, meaning the back and the side. And so we'll talk a little bit about that, but I just really want to give you tools that you can use in everyday life so that you can do maybe 2 of the movements we do today, and then move on with your life, and you've just shifted things just enough to be like, I am breathing better. I can feel air coming through both nostrils. I can feel my ribs moving. I feel my shoulders settled in my rib cage. If we just do that, you're doing amazing work. Let's get moving. There are lots of ways I can approach breathing that facilitates movement, but we're gonna do a check and a recheck at the end. In the between, we're gonna do a lot of different movements, and we're gonna see where that leads you. You're gonna start resting on your back, the knees bent, feet planted. I want you to just rest there and take a nice inhale and just notice where your body is in relationship to the ground. So notice how your shoulders feel. Let your arms come down by your side. Let your feet be a comfortable stance for you. Notice how your pelvis feels, how your feet feel. How does your back feel? Take a nice inhale. Where does your inhale go? Where does it not go? Exhale, notice what that feels like. Notice what it feels like as you reach your arms to the ceiling. You are going to inhale and stretch your arms towards the floor above your head. So palms face each other, thumbs are angling down towards the floor above your head. You're going to inhale there. Notice what that does in relationship to your back and the floor. Exhale, bring your arms back up. And because sometimes one time you don't really know exactly, so we're going to do it one more time. Just observation. Inhale, reach. Exhale, bringing that up. Do the same thing, similar thing, I guess, with your legs. You're going to slide one leg out. Notice what that feels like in your hip, in your belly, in your back, in your rib cage, even at your neck and shoulders. Exhale, bring it up. Try the other leg. Inhale out. Exhale, coming in. One more time each side. Inhale out. Exhale in. Inhaling out. Exhaling, coming all the way in. All right, so it's just baseline, like seeing what your body feels like there. And you're going to roll to your side with your knees bent. You are going to take your hands to the side of your rib cage, and you're going to keep your eyes closed, and you're going to breathe in, and you're going to notice if you can move your rib cage against your hand here. So you're going to inhale. Do your ribs move? Or is it just your belly or just your chest? You want your whole torso to have some level of expansion, but a lot of times our ribs get really compressed, especially if it's been a long day. Exhale, let it go. Take your hands a little bit towards the back of the rib cage, especially that lower back half. That's really important when you do your Pilates repertoire work, is this what we call posterior lateral breathing, meaning the back and the side really have to expand on your inhale, and you have to kind of keep that width as you exhale as well, so you can play with that for both stability and mobility work. You're going to inhale again, if you haven't already, and exhale. Then we're going to add movement, because motion is lotion, as they say. I don't know who they is, so someone can source that quote. You're going to take your fingertips to the top of your shoulder. We're going to move our arm around. You could do this with a straight arm, but we're going to do it with a bent elbow if that feels comfortable for you. You're going to reach your elbow forward as you inhale and reach forward and then overhead. Notice if you take that elbow up, or if you can really get that arm by your side. Bring that shoulder blade towards the spine as you come down and around on an exhale. Inhale as you reach forward and up. Exhale, down and around. Inhale, forward and up. Exhale, down and around. Go the other direction. Inhale as you go back and up. Exhale as you go forward and down. Inhale as you go back and up. Exhale as you go forward and down. One more. Inhale as you go back and up. Exhale as you go forward and down, and then take that top arm forward and overhead. Make sure your arm is casting a shadow on your face. Support this arm with your bottom hand, and it depends on your shoulder mobility if you need to grab up higher or lower. And you're going to do rotisserie ribs, so trying to minimize the knee and pelvic movement, trying to keep the knees and the pelvis stacked. As you rotate your ribs around an imaginary central, or not so imaginary, your spine is your central axis. But I like to call it rotisserie ribs because I think like you're on a spit, right? So you've got this line down the center of your body that you're going to exhale and rotate forward. Inhale, rotating back. Exhale, rotating forward. Inhale, rotating back. Exhale, rotating forward. Inhale, rotating back. Notice if you start to really extend and flex, just imagine that it's smaller and you're just trying to rotate around that center line and back. Then you're going to use your arms to come up to the sitting, but you're going to keep your legs off to one side. So you could have the legs stacked in a more what we call Cleopatra stance, or you could bring the bottom leg forward, take the foot to the back leg. One leg's turned in, one leg's turned out. If you sit in either of those positions and you find yourself really rounded and your legs can't drop down, give yourself a booster seat, right? So get some cushions, put it underneath your butt. I am going to go legs stacked, and I'm going to use my, top leg hand. I'm going to grab the shin. My other arm, I'm going to reach overhead. I'm going to pull with my top leg hand to stretch over. So I'm stretching away from that hip that's anchored. And then I'm going to take this hand that's lifted and take it down to the ground. I'm going to stretch the other way. I'm going to bend my elbow to allow more arc of my ribs. You can do this with either leg position. And also, if you give yourself if either of those leg positions don't work and you need another option, you're going to go back in the first direction. So you're going to go away from that anchored hip. Breathe. If you can't sit with the legs like this, but you can sit in a chair, or you could sit up on some bolsters just cross-legged, do that. That's fine too. You're going to side bend the other way. We're going to hold here in this side bend, and we're going to circle that arm. And as you do this, I want your eyes to follow your hand 3 times in each direction. So lots of shoulder and arm movement with your breath, with your ribs moving, because the arms and shoulders get stuck sometimes on the rib cage, or attachments in the neck kind of are dominating the shoulder movement because we don't realize that the ribs need to be there for the shoulders. So it's nice to get all this movement and breath going, breathing, just breathing. And then what you're going to do is you're going to take this hand that's been circling, you're going to rotate, and you're going to see if you can push into your hands here. Now, if you're sitting cross-legged, it might be that one hand is on that opposite, is across the body on the opposite knee. You might have been in that Cleopatra stance. You're like, oh, actually, I prefer mermaid now, like the split legs. Whatever works right for you. I'm not super concerned with like a crazy full-on rotation. What I want you to do is just hold here and breathe. And I want you to practice pushing into your hands, but pulling your belly back. And then I want you to see if you can hold your belly in slightly as you try and expand a little bit more stretch and yawn into your back body. That might mean, for some of you really tight, that your fingertips come up. And I just want you to take 2 more deep breaths there. Let your shoulders relax the deeper you go with your breath. Let your hips try and relax. Walk your hands towards your hips. Come all the way up to center. Swing your legs around. We're going to come to laying on the other side. So knees bent. We start with just exploring, what does this side feel like with our breath in and out? So hand goes to the rib cage in whatever way feels comfortable for you. Take a nice deep breath in. And exhale. Inhaling. Feeling the movement of your ribs. Exhaling. Slide the hand a little bit to the back of the ribs, particularly those lower back ribs, so like the middle and lower part of your rib cage and the back. Inhale again. Push those ribs up against that hand. And release that posterior lateral breath. Then we're going to take the fingertips to the top of the shoulder. You're going to inhale as you reach the elbow forward and up. Exhale as you bring it down and around. Inhale as you go forward and up. Exhale as you go around and down. Inhale, going forward and up. Exhale, down and around, then you're going to reverse it. So you're going to inhale as you go back and up. I'm using the inhale as you reach, so really practicing the reach of the arm overhead that pulls the ribs with the inhale, which also elevates the rib cage. So we're just really building, we're leaning everything in that one direction. Could you play with the opposite? Sure thing, but we're going to be intentional right now with this. Inhale, stretch. And down. Last one, inhaling back and up. Exhale, forward and down. Reach that arm in front of you. Take it overhead. Make sure your arm is casting a shadow. Support your arm however you need. And you're going to try and keep your knees and your hips stacked as you exhale and rotisserie ribcage forward. And then inhale back. Like here, those ribs really want to flare. So I'm going to try and keep them on that central axis, and it's a little more congested on this side. My thoracolumbar fascia is a little tighter. I have scoliosis, so my ribs are 2 different shapes. We all have asymmetries because we're human. Our organs are not particularly completely symmetrical inside our body, so we're just going to be slightly uneven. But we're aiming towards working for balance. One more. Remember to breathe. Exhale forward. Inhale back. And then you're gonna stack the ribs, use your hands to come up, find the seated position that's right for you. Remember, you could stack the legs, so Cleopatra legs, mermaid legs, one forward, one back, or you could sit cross-legged on whatever surface is right for you. You may like the legs off to the side, but you still need a booster seat. Do what you need to do. Take the arm that's just been moving, grab the shin or push your hand on the ground. The other arm's gonna reach up and you're gonna side bend away from your anchored hip. Breathe there. And then you're gonna take that arm to the floor and you're gonna stretch away and you're gonna bend that elbow so you have this nice arc of your spine and particularly your ribs. And then you're gonna come up and you're gonna go back to the original side and you're gonna breathe. And then you're gonna go back, arcing those ribs. And then you're gonna rotate, putting both hands on the ground. And you're gonna practice breathing into your back body. Pull the belly back, breathe. One more breath there. Posterior lateral breathing and then relax. Coming onto your back, you're gonna have your knees bent, arms reaching up towards the ceiling, and we're gonna keep working on that posterior aspect of the rib cage. So, reach your arms up towards the ceiling, but feel your shoulder blades and your ribs as heavy as you can possibly get it. Feet a comfortable stance, and I want you to slowly bridge up, making sure that you're not leading with your belly or your back, right? So it's not about that tightening of your ribs. Let me adjust my costume here. You're gonna keep your body as if it's falling back into a hammock as you work your hamstrings and glutes to lift up. Then slowly stretch the arms overhead, fingertips reaching, hold there, make sure your neck and throat are open. I want you to breathe here and imagine someone's pulling your fingertips and someone's pulling your knees in the opposite direction, and then slowly you are going to pour those ribs down onto the mat. Take as many breaths in and out as you need to practice articulating the thoracic vertebra and the rib cage back onto the mat, all the way down to the floor, and then the arms come back up. We're going to do that 2 more times. Breathe in at the bottom. Exhale as you bridge up, working through the hips, not the back. Reach the arms overhead, and then slowly roll back, letting your rib cage widen. Let your belly kind of fall into that imaginary hammock. Notice that there are areas that are stickier than others. And then come back up. Last one, bridging up. Reach the arms. And then rolling down. And then take your arms out to the side. And then what we're going to do is bring knee sways. So you're going to inhale and let your knees go one way. Doesn't matter how big or how small you make this. I don't want you to stack your legs today. You're going to think the bottom leg's turning out, the top leg's turning in. That top hip does lift. And I want you to notice that posterior rib cage there that lifts off. Can your shoulders stay grounded? Maybe you want to let your head turn away from that. And you're going to breathe into that lifted area. When you're ready to pour back to center, instead of just taking your knees back, I want you to think, I'm going to inhale into this lifted area, this back body. And then I'm going to exhale and I'm going to draw my abdominals in, but really what I'm going to think is I'm widening this area, that rib cage, lower back, onto the mat to come center. So we're really still working through that. Inhaling. Hold there for a moment and just luxuriate in the diagonal pull that you get. See if you could breathe a little bit more. Let the rib cage widen in that back and side angle. Getting the thoracolumbar fascia as well as the posterior aspect of your diaphragm to glide and move some. When you're ready, exhale and pour yourself back to center. We're going to do that one more time each side. Inhale, knee sway. Exhale, center. Inhale, knee sway. Exhale, center. From there, I want you to bring your legs together. Feet can press together, maybe your knees squeeze together, maybe not. You're gonna reach your arms back up towards the ceiling, and now we're gonna play. So I want you to wiggle however you need to wiggle. See if you can get those ribs down, see if you can get your pelvis down. Now, if you can't get your ribs down yet, pad up the head, because lifting the head is going to help that rib cage descend back. And I really want you to have this ability to breathe into your back body. When you're ready, you're going to breathe into the back body. And of course, the belly expands a little bit too, but I don't want you to think belly breath. You're going to exhale and just feel a little hug of everything to the center without your back lifting. So you're going to stay wide in the mat as you pull the belly in and float your legs up towards the end of that exhale. So you take a moment to prepare yourself. Now, I want you to just play here, right? So there are lots of Pilates repertoire we could add on from here. But really all I want you to do is, instead of work on the repertoire, I want you to work on the breath and how you can manipulate that back expansion. So what you're going to do is you're just going to float your arms and legs away, and you're going to inhale as you do that, and see if you can push your inhale into the mat. Exhale, pull it back to center. One more like that. So you're just playing. So breath as a tool. Inhale into that back body. Float the arms and legs away. Exhale, coming in. Now hold there. Inhale here. Exhale as you go out. Same concept, back body with the mat. Exhale, go out. Inhale, come in. Breathe into that back body. Exhale out. Inhale in. Now, hug your knees into your chest and take your hands either to your shins or your thighs, whatever is more comfortable for you. Keep your elbows bent and your shoulders on your ribs. You're going to inhale as you push your legs against your hands, although your hands are still pulling in, and now you're going to use that to help you lift up into a little chest lift. So head and chest lift. Make sure that your neck feels okay here. Now, if your neck can't do this, then just keep your head down and keep exploring what we just were doing. So see if you can get your shoulders on your ribcage away from your neck. Notice if your knees are like by your eyeballs, so like get your butt down and use this push-pull. And then I just want you to hold here and inhale into that back body to almost feel like that pressure back into the mat pushes your head up towards the ceiling a little bit more. Exhale, pull the belly in, anchor the tail down. Inhaling. Exhaling. One more. Exhaling and then releasing. From here, you're going to roll over to your hands and knees. On your hands and knees, we're going to do a fair amount of shifting. Sometimes I do this with a roller or a ball underneath my hand. Sometimes I do this with my knees elevated on something. You could play around, but again, I really want to make it accessible that you don't really have to have anything if you don't want to. You could do this standing with your hands against the wall. What I'm going to do is I'm going to push the ground away with my shins and my hands. I'm going to take one arm, I'm going to reach it across to the opposite corner of my mat. My other elbow might bend, and that's okay, but I want to keep this opposite arm. I'm going to keep that really straight and actively pushing down. Even if I have to flip and push the pinky edge of my hand down, that's fine. I'm going to see if my hips, my knees stay centered, basically, and I'm going to stretch back, and you're going to breathe as you do this. Let your belly stay a little floaty. Let your breath go in and out here. And then you're going to pull with this arm as you come forward, but try not to overly compress your ribcage. Just think, I'm keeping this beautiful, voluminous ribcage as I come forward. We're going to do one more. You're going to inhale and go back. Just let the arm that's not stretched across, just let it accommodate, right? Don't think too much about it. Breathe there. 3 deep breaths. Letting your pelvic floor open as you're stretching this breath and this shoulder, lat musculature. Keep your organs lightly supported, and then coming all the way back. We're going to do the other side. So take the other hand across. Press down through that hand, even if you have to flip down to the pinky or you have to do spider fingers, whatever works for you. I'm going to try, my hips already want to shift on the side, so I'm going to think about my legs hugging towards center to hopefully keep my pelvis a little bit more level. I'm using my other arm however I need to, and I'm going to breathe, and it is totally different on this side. And I'm just going to explore as I breathe here. And then when you're ready, you pull forward about 3 deep breaths. And you're going to do this again. Breathing, shifting back, and your knees and your hips stay on a parallel track, even though your arms and your ribs are doing something asymmetrical. One more breath there. And then pulling forward. Take both hands underneath you. Then we're going to thread the needle. So one arm is going to reach out to the side. You can push through your bottom arm to open out. That's important. Maybe that doesn't feel right for you. You want to stay level. Then you're going to thread this arm. The other elbow bends. Ideally, I don't shift back too much. I just take my head down right by that bottom hand and I breathe there. And again, I'm going to try not to keep my hips off to the side. I'm going to try and keep them level. Take a nice deep breath in. And then slowly press and open out. Press and open even more if you want. And then thread that arm underneath again. Breathing. Press and open out if that's the right call for your body. Bring that hand down. Try the other side. Reach the other arm out. Push down through your bottom arm to open to the side. Then thread that arm. Oh, the side again. Different than the other side. Breathe. Remember back to when we did rotisserie ribs, sometimes our ribs kind of collapse or whatever. So think about that central axis. Open up. And then reaching through. Breathing. These sort of side movements and rotation movements are really helpful if you tend to be really tight when you move forward or back in the sagittal plane is what we call that. So sometimes if we tend to be really tight or immobile, when we have to move our spine forward and back, or our hips or our shoulders forward and back, it's really helpful to move in these either rotation or side bending. Can kind of help lubricate things before you move forward and back. So now we're going to do cat-cow. So you're going to start with your tail and you're going to slowly articulate through your spine. And you're just going to take as many breaths as you need. You're pushing the ground with your hands and your shins, and you're going to let your shoulders be on the ribs rather than your earrings as you round. And then slowly let your tail ripple up. Shoulders, even the shoulder muscles and the arm muscles can kind of help you with that extension of your spine. A lot of those posterior shoulder girdle muscles can really help pull the spine into extension. And then one more, you're going to round, curling the tail under, sits bones aim under, navel lifts up, the spine starts to slide apart in the back. Shoulders, sometimes our shoulders want to do it for us, so just maybe let that happen and then let your shoulders relax and see if you can keep that gentle curve. And then releasing into extension of your spine, the amount that's right for you. All the way out through your neck and head. Then we're going to go back to a central place and you're going to come to resting on your back. We're going to do our recheck now. So take a moment. Adjust yourself, adjust your costumes, your hair, whatever you need to do. Resting on your back and take a moment and breathe. Let your arms come down by your side. Notice how the feet feel. Notice how the pelvis feels. Notice if the back feels different, the lower back, the rib cage, the shoulders on the mat. Notice if your neck and throat feel any different. You're going to reach your arms back up towards the ceiling, palms facing each other, shoulder blades on the ground. Remember to use head padding if you need to. Rome was not built in a day, so to speak, so don't think that you need to be completely changed in this one class. You're going to reach your arms overhead and notice if it feels any different. Can you move your arms more? Do you feel more connection? Do you feel more stretch? Do you feel less stretch? Do you feel like your back can stay more anchored on the floor as you do this? I can definitely take my arms more towards the ground and then without my back lifting. And then you just bring your arms back up towards the ceiling. One more like that. Palms facing each other the whole time. Inhale, reach. And then coming back. Bring your arms down by your side. Try the legs, right? Stretch one leg out, breathing in. How does that feel? Exhale, bringing it back in. Try the other leg, inhaling out. Exhaling in. Inhaling. Do you feel a sense of how your whole body kind of expands on the inhale, but particularly how you can control where you breathe, where the movement of your breath can go. Exhale in. Inhale out. Exhale in. And that's it for today's movement session. Just remember, your breath is not a prescriptive thing to do, right? Belly breathing does not mean that the breath only goes into your belly. Posterior lateral breathing, like we do a lot in Pilates, does not mean that's the only way to breathe. It is about having dynamics and awareness and control of your breath function. So it is a tool that only enhances your body's movement capabilities. You're alive, you're breathing, move forth with your day, and until next time, keep moving.